Starting.
Yeah.
So, good evening to all of you. We welcome you all for the 27th Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam webinar series. Today's topic is renewable energy in Germany, key takeaways. Our speaker for today is Sri Mahesh Krishnan, project developer, Solar Energy Berlin, Germany. Before we start our event, we start with our institute's anthem.
सतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मामृतं गमय असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मामृतं गमय असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मामृतं गमय.
A short profile of Mahesh Krishnan sir. Sir is a mechanical engineer, renewable energy engineer from Pune, Maharashtra, and currently settled in Berlin, Germany. Sir has done his bachelor's degree from Vishwarya National Institute of Technology, Nagpur, followed by master's in engineering and international business from SRH University of Applied Sciences in Berlin, Germany, with a focus on renewable energy, water, and waste management. He has almost 3 years of professional experience as a PV designer and have been active in PV domain since the last 5 years, having done his master's thesis in PV feasibility analysis. With this short profile, we start the session. I welcome Mahesh Krishnan sir.
Hello. Nice to meet you all. My name is Mahesh. I will give you a short introduction about myself again, but I'm very excited to share what I have prepared with you. I hope we all walk away from this having learned something new. And I hope all this information comes in handy for you people when it comes to understanding how important renewable energy is for us and for our planet going here on forward. So with that, I would like to start with my presentation. So that's my topic for today, renewable energy in Germany, key takeaways. I would like to thank the Sustainability Standards Board for giving me the opportunity of presenting this topic. And it's an honor to talk about something that I'm very passionate about. This is a field that I've been working on for over half a decade, and it gives me immense pleasure to share my knowledge with all of you and to help you understand or maybe to convince you that renewable energy is the way to go in the future. And I'll always be happy to answer your questions to the best of my capabilities. So this is my agenda for today. These are the topics I'm going to cover. I will introduce myself again briefly. Thank you, sir, for introducing me earlier. I will probably give a few extra pointers on myself. Then I would like to talk about renewable energy and sustainability, like why renewable energy and sustainability go hand in hand. Then I would like to introduce renewable energy in Germany to all of you, and then dive into solar and wind energy specifically, because I feel they are the prime movers of renewable energy in Germany. Of course, there are other sources, but I feel solar and wind are the most popular. So I would most likely lean on these two. And I've included some reading materials as well for those who are interested in reading further into topics and innovations in Germany, and also how it could impact worldwide. And in the end, also sources and references if you would like to dive deeper into these topics. So I would like to start with a small introduction. I'm from Pune and I'm based in Germany. I came here 6 years ago to do my master's in renewable energy and international business. And I had previously done my bachelor's in VNIT Nagpur, or Vishveshwaraya National Institute of Nagpur, in mechanical engineering. And after my bachelor's, I had a subject actually in renewable energy. It really interested me. So I thought of pursuing my career in renewable energy. And I've been working as a project developer for large scale utility solar projects here in Germany with 3 years of experience almost. And I've been actively working on the PV field for over half a decade. I did my master thesis is in the field of PV as well, for project feasibility analysis, and also a bit of forecasting to see the impact of carbon emissions. If we continue to use our current sources of energy, how will the emissions be impacted later on? That was the topic for my thesis. And I've learned a lot through that, and I've been applying it into my field. So I would like to discuss a few things that I've observed over time here. And last but not the least, this is the link to my LinkedIn profile. If any of you want to send me a request, I'll be happy to get in touch and talk about these topics. I believe we can always learn from one another, and that is something that I take away from personally. And this is, you can feel free to reach out, feel free to message me. I will definitely get back to you when I get the time. So with that, I would like to start talking about renewable energy and sustainability. The most basic definition of sustainability is using resources, keeping future generations in mind. And this is why I feel renewable energy and sustainability have a good synergy. Because as we know, renewable energy are derived from inexhaustible sources. And these sources can be also harnessed, say, 50 years down the time. And that goes very well with the concept of sustainability. And I also feel fossil fuels degrade our environment by some margin, and we can see the effects of it already: global warming, and we can see temperatures rising more than normal, weather being a bit, the pattern is not the same over time, and also, as you know, ozone layer depletion. All these things are propelled by fossil fuels, but renewable energy ensures that we are in line with the values of sustainability, and also at the same time we help our planet. And I feel that is what mainly drove me to give more time in this field. And then a few short recap of renewable energy and sustainability. I've already talked about these points before, but I've summarized it over here. They can be constantly replenished. As you know, renewable sources, the sun will always shine, the wind will always blow, we'll always have tides. So we can harness tidal energy, hydro energy. Then we can have our solar power, our wind power. All these things, they are sourced from natural phenomena. So we have no problems of exhausting any resources. So that is goes very well with the concept of sustainability. Then there is also greenhouse gas emissions that I talked about. We are having significant increase in temperature. I read sometime last year that the average temperature increased almost to 2 degrees, and the polar ice caps are melting because of that, and that has caused, that is something to be worried about, in my opinion, because Mother Nature is a power that we can't really compete with, in my opinion. And obviously, the ozone layer depletion, that is another thing that we need to be worried about. There are already holes in the ozone layer, particularly over the continent of Australia. And I feel that if we keep going the way we are going, eventually it will be all over our planet. And that is not something that we want. And I'm glad that we have solutions to it, but we just need to work hard to get there. And I feel all of us are motivated enough in my field to do that. And I would say this is the net positive of the next point is more, but I want to mention it that There are environmental concerns with renewable energy. For example, if you're placing, if you have a large scale utility solar park, for example, um, it requires space, and probably there is a habitat for wildlife, and that gets disturbed because of renewable energy expansion. And the same applies for wind farms. For example, there are birds flying, and then the rotor blade is constantly turning, so a bird might fly and it might get injured or in most cases die. And it's not really ideal. But at the same time, I feel as living beings, we are blessed with the beauty of adapting to our situation. And I feel over time, just like we have adopted the technical technology life that we live at the moment. For example, we never had phones a few years back, and now we can't live without it. Renewable energy, I feel, will have a similar impact, if not more, because not only are we helping the planet, but at the same time, we are ensuring that our energy sources are not depleted for future generations. And as human beings, I think caring for the future generation is our responsibility. And now I would like to talk about some macro and micro impact for renewable energy. Um the first point, it can avoid geopolitical issues if you invest in renewable energy. This I can back with an experience from Germany. Because of the Russia-Ukraine war, the gas supplies to Germany were disrupted. And that is because uh, suddenly one day Russia decided that they want to, um, keep the energy sources to themselves, and that affected Germany by quite a bit. We saw a huge rise in energy prices, and I feel that was very. Um, it was a wake up moment for this country, and then what happened is they decided to invest more on renewable sources, as we will talk about in the next coming slides. And now Germany knows that it has to be self-reliant when it comes to energy. And also, when you locally produce energy, you don't need to import energy from elsewhere. Self-reliance is an important thing. Renewable energy is that is one of the main selling points for renewable energy, in my opinion. I feel to self be self-reliant. And the last point is the flexibility of renewable energy sources. We can have huge gigawatt, terawatt plants, like the huge plant we have in Rajasthan in India, the Badla Park, for example. Or we can have something as simple as powering up small houses or small villas. And I think this on-grid and off-grid possibility of renewable energy sources, it makes sure it reaches out to a large domain of people and not just people who live in cities. So I feel that is important as well, because we all deserve the right to be have access to energy, and energy has changed our life ever since, for example, we invented electricity and light bulbs. Everyone's life has changed drastically. So I feel we all have the need the basic right to access energy, and renewable energy gives you the option of having on grid or off grid or even hybrid, where the excess energy you produce, you can always send it to the grid for some other party to use. So I feel these are the macro and micro impacts of renewable energy. And it also is in line with sustainability because you're looking into the future. And then, of course, you can't always talk about the advantages. I would also like to touch on a few disadvantages. The major challenge right now is intermittency. The sun doesn't shine at night, unfortunately, or fortunately. And then the wind doesn't blow all the time. Turbines don't move, so it doesn't produce energy. So this intermittency causes problem when you rely on solely renewable energy in the grid. And there are a few problems, of course, which I'll be solutions, of course, I'm sorry, to counter these problems, but I will touch on them in detail in the next few slides. And then the second problem is, like I talked before, if the area occupied by these parks or these solar farms, they basically require land areas which might affect agriculture, natural habitats, because over here, for example, for PV installations, because I already talked about the bird and the wind turbine. For PV installations, for example, there are underground animals that get affected. Their habitats get affected because of PV. Because when you install the PV modules, you need to the support system for the tables, TV tables, they need to go into the ground. So all these things impact their natural habitat, and I feel that is a disadvantage. But like I mentioned earlier, over time we all adapt, and I feel the net outcome is positive. So I mentioned it here because people should be aware of that also, and it should not have that notion that everything in renewable energy is a go signal, it's green. I believe that it's also important to know the drawbacks. And then the second thing is infrastructure investment in the beginning. It's quite high for renewable energy. Big parks have over 50 to 60,000 modules of solar, and you need to have support systems. You need to have maintenance. You need to have generators. You need to have inverters. Like in the beginning, the investment costs are high, but eventually your payback period, you get it back at some point in time, ideally 20 to 30 years, which is normally the time where you get returns for a big scale park, and 10 to 15 years for home installments, depending on your investment, of course. And this can be offset by government incentives, which I'll be talking about later as well. And then last but not the least, these technologies are still in the process of innovation. There are a lot of things that keep changing. I keep reading articles every day. There are news and publishing papers on Google Scholar all the time about new advancements in technology. And I feel it's very fascinating to know people are actively investing in moving forward with this, and that has enabled us as to learn more, and at the same time also make sure that the system that is out there is highly efficient, and at the same time it also meets the needs of people. So it's basically trying to reach that 50-50, where it's also beneficial for people who are investing in this, and at the same time it's also for people who are benefiting from this. And now I would like to touch on the topic of bigger picture for sustainability and renewable energy. I feel renewable energy is at the heart of sustainable energy, at least. And this not only harnessing clean source of energy, not only ensures or assures us that we'll have a source of energy throughout a long time, like not just our lifetime, but a long time, because we are insignificant when we look at it from the universe's perspective. We are just a blip, I would say, in the timeline. So renewable energy sources are here to stay for a long time. And I feel that's why it's at the heart of a sustainable future for energy in particular. And also, as people start seeing the benefits, there is more money put into advancements in technology, changes in policy to facilitate more people to be confident about investing in renewable energy. And also, there are lots of global energy challenges. We are actually privileged to be in a place where energy comes from our sockets, but there are so many places where energy is still a problem, and it's only at certain points of the day. And all these things, when you look at it from that perspective, I feel when renewable energy becomes popular, it will address all these issues, and these countries or these small places do not need to rely on external sources or imports or exports. So I feel that is one of the main reasons why renewable energy is going to be how our future looks in a few years' time. So with that, I would like to introduce renewable energy in Germany to you, and then I would like to go in detail with solar and wind. So basically, Germany has always been a leader in renewable energy, and it has been here for a long time, actually. But now the process is accelerated because of the war situation that I explained to you. The need for alternate sources is more. And there is also this thing, a policy in Germany that's called energy vendor in German, or in English, it's energy transition. So what that aims to do is basically reduce your greenhouse emissions then phase out nuclear power. Actually, phasing out of nuclear power has already happened. 2024 April was the last operational nuclear plant in Germany. It was shut off. So now it's completely off nuclear. It's working towards renewable sources, and the primary source is still used, but then the mix of renewable energy in the grid is increasing, and that's basically their policy that they want to achieve. And then, as you can see, the primary energy consumption has reduced by 1.3%. Might not seem like much, but even a small step is a big step in the right direction, according to me. And renewable energy contributed to 20% of the overall consumption, and one-fifth when you look at a country the size of Germany is quite huge, and I feel like it's only going to get better. So 20% uh, in 2024 will only become more in 2025. And now, as you can see, renewable energy sources accounted for 62% of Germany's electric generation. And that's quite a bit if you think about it. And these mainly, there were reasons why it reached that number, which I'll be talking about in the coming few slides. But it's quite a substantial number that, for example, they have some goals to reach, which I'll be discussing in the policies. So you can see why these numbers are more assuring that Germany will get where it wants to get in the next 10 or 15 years. And then also you can see German authorities, they approved constructions of new wind turbines, 2,400 to be precise, or maybe more or less, but this is the rough estimation. And that has added 14 gigawatts of power to the grid. And that is, and because of the policies that have changed over the years, there has been an increase in approval rates for these projects. And I feel like this will only motivate companies to invest more in the field of renewable energy. Then solar power reached a record of 72 terawatt hours in 2024. 59 was fed into 59 was actually fed into the public grid, and the rest was for self-consumption. So basically, all this power was generated through solar power rooftop installations, balcony installations, small utility businesses. Like it was installed everywhere, and that has increased the input of solar. Like it's basically, I would say, butterfly effect or the ripple effect. Small things that you do, they have a very big effect when you look at it. When you look at the bigger perspective. And by the end of 2024, renewable energy reached a total capacity of 190 gigawatts, which is huge, and nearly by 20 gigawatts this year. And it was mainly driven by solar, actually, because solar was it's gaining popularity in especially the smaller cities here from my observation, where houses have rooftop solar, or they have a small backyard where they have few panels, and they mostly have hybrid systems where it's connected to the grid, and they sell the excess energy, they make some money. People in need, they get the energy that they send into the grid. So it's basically like a very it's like we are helping one another with the system, I would say. And solar's total capacity came up to 99 gigawatts, and that is huge. And we will see why this number matters, this 99 gigawatts, when I talk about solar energy in depth. And like I mentioned earlier, two-thirds of these additions were rooftop installations. And there are lots of small startups in Germany right now that have that are specifically into rooftop, and the bigger companies focus on large scale utility. So like now the country sees the possibilities and also the need for it. And as you can see with the numbers, they're actively improving. And it will be interesting to see at the end of this year, what is the percentage change. And for me, as an enthusiast in this topic, I would definitely keep in tabs. And the links that I share later on, they keep updating these things. So if you have any inclination in learning more, you can feel free to go on those links. They're very active. The community is great, and they're very helpful as well. They're Reddit pages. So you can always learn from one another. These things, that's why renewable energy is still, I feel, one of the best solutions, because we are learning from experiences and we are not established like a coal plant or natural gas plant. We are still learning, and based on what satisfies most customers, because fortunately or unfortunately, we cannot satisfy everyone. We can innovate and we can provide solutions for them. Then now I would like to go into solar a little bit in depth. The journey of solar began in 1970. That's a long time back. It was a long time before I was born even. And it was, but at that stage, it was just small scale installations and mainly experimental. And at that time, the efficiencies were very low, unlike what we have today. And I would say the efficiencies were around 5 to 10%. Now it's on the upper side of 25 for large scale utility solar. I mean, in lab, they have achieved almost 30 to 40% efficiency, but the conditions are yet to be fact checked outside lab. So I would say 25 to 35 is the safe bet for solar panel efficiency at the moment. And then I would say a pivotal moment came in the introduction of Renewable Energy Sources Act, or AEG, as they say in German, which stands for Erneuerbare Energiegesetz, or Renewable Energy Law. And basically, I will be talking about it or elaborating on that more. But just to give you an idea of everything before that, as of 2024, as I'd already discussed earlier, 99 gigawatts was installed in Germany. I wanted to summarize everything in different slides so that you can quickly go through these slides. And then there's also steady rise in panels being installed. And I've observed even with local newspapers here or with articles here, um, encouraging people to have rooftop installations. And it's very nice to see. And a lot of people are also very fond of the idea of being self-reliant and not depending on the grid, because you never know, like when the requirement comes, and if you're self-sufficient, when there is alteration in the grid or power supply, you are not affected. And since most of the system are hybrid, you're also helping someone out. So it's also feels morally right, in my opinion. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the role of solar in Germany's grid. It generated 72.2 terawatt hours of electricity, and 12 terawatt was self-consumption. And now I've seen even small businesses here, small factories, excuse me, they have a they have a backyard where they invest in solar energy, or say biogas, which is also gaining popularity, waste management. And there is also small wind turbines that I've observed recently on rooftops of buildings, which don't generate necessarily as much power as the wind turbine, of course, but they can power up tube lights and bulbs and things like that. So even these small things make a big difference later on, because the power that you're using for that bulb, uh, you don't have to use that from your primary sources anymore. And when you extrapolate that from one house to say a million, you're saving that much watts of energy. So these numbers only seem significant when you extrapolate them, is what I believe. And now I want to elaborate on the EEG law over here. Basically, from 2000 onwards, they keep updating it every few years. The latest came last year. And what it aims to do is it encourages producers of renewable energy to invest more in the market. And the problem with renewable energy is, like we mentioned earlier, the intermittency. So basically, you have that uncertainty that I produced, say, 100 gigawatts, but only 50 was used. But what this act ensures is that you get paid for that 100. There is a fixed rate that you sign in your contract, and that rate will be used for example, you'll always get that money in your account. So investors and companies, they will not see as big a risk as only relying on if I sell X amount, I will get X into that amount. So I feel that was kind of a pivotal moment for renewable energy in Germany. And at the same time, the ambitions that the country set, especially due to the recent events, you can see they want to increase the capacity to 250 gigawatts only for solar. And that's why I had highlighted that number in the previous slide, that we have 99 right now. It has to be 215 by 2030. That's more than two times their goal. So to do this, the government has done all these. They are basically trying to streamline permits, because over here there's a lot of problems when it comes to approval and getting things in order. And I feel like that is kind of bringing down renewable energy a little bit. But over time, and it's mainly I've observed a conception of the older generation. The newer generation is more open to caring for the planet and installing solar energy over here. I'm not generalizing, of course. And obviously, the you have a new energy system which has different requirements. So basically, integrating it into your energy mix is also a challenge. There's intermittency, there's peaks when you need to oblige, when you have factories, manufacturing facilities, all these things, they require X amount of power and you need to meet them. And maybe because of this intermittency, you can't do that. And now we need infrastructure, and the research is also going into this infrastructure where you have a better solution for grid injection, and you also make sure that you are able to meet with the peak demands. And this can also be done, as I've highlighted, with private homes, businesses. Their small contributions, and this hybrid system ensures that the grid is always supplied with renewable energy. And now, since I've observed here the main technological innovations, one of the main topic is grid integration, which I'll be talking about as well. And based on that, I feel solar energy is going to have a bright future in Germany. And solar is more popular than wind, which I'll be discussing as well. So with that, I would like to go on the economic and environmental impact of solar for job creation. Like we saw earlier, since 1970s, there have been a lot of development in the field of solar, and thousands of jobs have been created, which related to installation, marketing, manufacturing, research, all the topics that you can think of when it comes to a certain element. I feel like in this case, solar energy. And there are a lot of research institutes here that you can see in research papers. They actively work on improving efficiency of solar cells or coming with better battery tech, things like that. So it ensures that you create clean energy, and clean energy also leads to new jobs. So it's like a win-win situation, I believe. And then solar power is offsetting the carbon emissions or the greenhouse gas emissions in Germany as well. 1.3% reduction in primary sources means that it has offset 1.3% with solar energy, and that offsets your emissions as well, which has to come in line with the Paris Agreement. And Germany's goal is to reduce emissions by 55% by 2030, relative to 1990. So that's in the last 25 years. They want to reduce it by 55%, which is quite a bit. And I feel like this is what I read a few years back, or that for the current situation that we have, we need over 125 years for our atmosphere to be free of carbon emissions or greenhouse gases. So now all we can do is mitigate and reduce what we are doing, so that later on, maybe few generations down the line, we'll have a carbon free atmosphere. And I mean, years to hoping to that, I believe. And I feel that is the end goal for people working in this field. And hopefully that becomes a reality. And then, of course, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people, a lot of universities, a lot of small startups are working on improving solar panel technology. And there are new types of cell called tandem cells and perovskite based solar cells. And basically, they are higher efficiency, but they are yet to be tested in standard temperature and pressure conditions. So the lab conditions are very optimized, but as of now, it's exciting to know that there are new technologies in the pipeline, and maybe a few years down the line, we'll have panels that have 50% efficiency or 55, 60% efficiency. So in the same amount of area that you generate the power at the moment, you put the same amount of panels, you get more power, and that offsets your primary sources of energy more. And that's the goal. That's the end goal, like I discussed earlier. And then of course, energy storage, that's actually a hot topic right now in Germany. Basically, you have battery containers for solar parks. Say for a 10 megawatt park, you have a 1 megawatt battery container. And when you require, you can use this. And you can sign PPAs with small factories, or you can sign PPAs with small residential areas nearby, and they can help you out. Um, with this energy supply when you require them during peak hours when the grid is unstable. So solar technology is becoming, or say solar energy storage is becoming a popular topic here. And most of the projects that are in the pipeline for many companies here, they also have a pitch for energy storage. So that is something to look out for as well, I believe. And then these are the challenges. The first one is power fluctuation, like I said. Um, the grid instability and also not having solar energy at night. So we have to kind of combine them with other systems to ensure that we have a streamlined flow of energy. And then later on, once we learn more about renewable energy and how to harness power more effectively, we will slowly increase the proportion of green energy sources and try to eliminate or reduce primary consumption as much as possible. I mean, it's good to have primary, it should be such that at one point it's good to have primary sources as a backup, but we should not rely on it. That is the end goal. And then of course, over the last few years, since I've talked about, it's a bit tedious to get permits to build solar parks. So the manufacturing side has not slowed down. So there is excessive panels produced. Because of that, the panel prices have gone down. So the business estimates of a lot of these companies were offset. And that is putting a lot of pressure on the domestic industry because most of the solar panels are imported from Eastern countries, China, and now even India, because India is going to be, India aims to be the top producer or exporter of solar panels by the end of the decade. So there is stiff competition with low prices from East, which is putting pressure on the local companies. And that is a challenge. And there is a lot of panels on the market. You have a lot of possibilities. But because the prices are lower from Eastern countries, local companies are not able to reap the benefits of this revolution. Then now I would like to talk about wind energy in Germany, a brief look. I'm actually experienced in the solar field, but wind is also something very interesting. So I'll try my best to share with you the knowledge I've accumulated on wind over time. So as you know, uh, or as everyone knows, wind energy and Germany, they have always been news. It's there. It's a very important part of the energy transition strategy that they have. Um, and right now they produce 60 gigawatts of wind power, and that is one of the leading producers. Apart from Scandinavian countries like Norway and Denmark, where almost their entire energy mix is renewable energy. And these countries are also highly intensive on research and development of newer wind turbines so that we can have better turbines. So in a small area, we can still produce a lot of energy, and in bigger areas, we can produce more. So I feel Germany and Denmark, these countries come to mind when I think about innovation. And the main categories are onshore and offshore. Onshore wind is the most common over here. It's mainly prevalent in east and north side of the country. And especially where I live in Berlin, which is on the east side, you can see a lot of wind farms over here, and it stretches all the way to the south borders, and there are a lot of solar panels as well right now. There are a lot of projects coming up. So onshore wind is the main source of wind energy power in Germany. And then there's also offshore projects that are slowly gaining popularity. And these are mainly concentrated in the North Sea and the Baltic Sea. And Germany has been increasingly expanding its offshore capacity. And like it has the North Sea and the Baltic Sea, sharing it with other countries. And basically, there's also agreements between countries to share power. So I feel offshore is going to gain popularity. And speaking of offshore, I also think India is going to benefit a lot from this because we are a peninsula. We have wind potential for onshore wind on three sides, and that is huge. And that is not to forget the huge land that we have in our country already for solar and for waste and for biogas, because waste disposal is a problem, I feel. And with renewable sources, with say gasification, biogas, we can also see the potential of renewable energy in India. I would say India's potential for renewable energy is on a very huge scale. And I feel a lot of people are going to be genuinely surprised as to where we are going to end up in the end with renewable sources. And this is the overview on capacity. Like I already discussed, 60 gigawatts of wind energy, and out of which 8 gigawatts are offshore wind. And Germany's goal is to reach 30 to 40 gigawatts of offshore by 2040. That's in the next 15 years. And it's almost 5 times the current capacity. So you can see the motivation or the urgency to become like to take or to make sure or to ensure that the renewable energy standards are met, and or the energy transition policy that I mentioned earlier. And the total offshore will reach half of their goal, that is 20 gigawatts by 2030. That is 12 gigawatt more, like based on the numbers here, and that's quite a bit. That's 1.5 times in the next 5 years. So that shows how actively offshore projects are picking up. A lot of projects from Spain, a lot of projects from other countries in Europe, from France, etc., to invest in offshore wind. And I feel like it's going to gain popularity because onshore, I will talk about why it might be a little slower in development compared to offshore. So now I would like to talk about a few government policies and incentives. The first one is the same as PV. The EEG, you have fixed in tariffs. You produce X amount of energy, you get that money from the government. You can also have a part of the wind parks governed by EEG, a part of it power purchase agreements. You can outsource. You can outsource external companies to get in various biddings for you. So there are a lot of possibilities, and you have a playground to test what can you do to make sure you meet the demands and also you're profitable to invest in more projects. And then there is an auction system here that started in 2017. So basically, you have a set amount of power goal that you want to reach. Say you want to reach 10 gigawatts for this year. So different companies, they submit their bids saying we want X euros or X cents for per kilowatt hour, and the best out of them, they get selected, and then they get the approval for building. So this incentivizes you to constantly be abreast with the business cases, and like to make sure you are in that sweet spot where you are turning a profit, and also at the same time you are having the possibility of investing in more projects and helping more people getting access to clean energy sources. And as I mentioned earlier, that I'll talk about it, grid expansion is another topic. You have more energy sources, you have more challenges, so you need to invest in more infrastructure. And one of them, for example, is building high voltage transmission lines. And this mainly applies to offshore because you have to bring in energy from the sea to mainland. So you can use the concept of step up, step down transformers for voltage, for example, to make sure that you minimize the losses because they're unavoidable. But with high voltage lines, you can make sure your losses are minimized. And then you also have the climate protection law. Germany wants to reach climate neutrality by 2050. And as you have read, there are a lot of carbon topics on carbon credits and companies encouraging you to reduce your carbon emissions, and sometimes the government pays you for reducing your carbon emissions, and all these things are just driving forces for you to sit back and think, yes, this is the right move for the world going here on out. And we cannot just be selfish in this manner because uh, we are all humans, we are on a timer, and we need to think about the future generation as well. And wind energy being is going to be a very prime mover of these things, I feel, for uh, the energy transition in Germany. And then the economic impact, as you can see, there are over 300,000 people in Germany employed in the wind sector. And these jobs are mainly in manufacturing, construction, operation, maintenance, marketing, research, everything that comes under wind energy. There are around 300,000 people employed. And all the big companies here like Nordex, Siemens, Gamesa, they are the leading manufacturers as well. And now that they have that reputation, they have well established supply chains in Germany. And there's always technological improvements. For example, you can learn from what Denmark is doing. For example, the software Wind Pro, if some of you have heard about it, it's from a Denmark a company based on Denmark, or a university rather, and they basically come up with some breakthroughs that Siemens, Gamesa, Nordex, all these people, Enercon, all these companies, they constantly keep on innovating new blade technology, new turbines, new generators, components, so that we reduce the amount of energy loss, and at the same time we're energy efficient. And as we know, for wind energy, there is something called the Betz limit. We cannot harness above 59% of energy. Correct me if I'm wrong. So we need to reach that number. And right now we are getting there. And all these technology, they ensure that we'll get there. And they're very motivating for people from my field, knowing that things are improving. So we can also plan around that for the future. And then wind energy over here in Germany, there's a lot of international investments and domestic. International, as I had mentioned earlier, there are Spanish companies that are interested, like Iberdrola, for example. And there are some French companies as well that want to invest in renewable energy here in the wind sector, because wind is wind. The popularity of solar just came on top, and so far it was mainly wind. And there's a lot of innovations in grid management, energy storage, turbine technology, like I mentioned earlier, blades, etc., etc. And obviously, there are some issues that I had mentioned earlier, why wind energy is slowing down a little. This is from personal experience over here. A lot of people don't want wind energy turbines in their backyards. They don't want to hear the sound of the rotor, or they don't want to see that light blinking, because that light has to be there so that if there is an aircraft or a flying object and they're flying low, they need to know that there is a wind turbine there. And nowadays, the hub height of wind turbines can go up to 180, 175, 180 meters. So it's quite huge. And a lot of people don't want to see that blinking light. And then there's also issues with local wildlife. Like I said, birds, they might die when they fly through the turbine blades. And there's also the issue with the space that they cover, because wind energy, for example, when the wind flows through the blades, there's turbulence, and turbulent conditions are not something we are completely comfortable with. We like to work under laminar flow. So To avoid turbulence, the rule of thumb is having 1.5 times your hub diameter. And that hub diameter is basically 1.5 times. So you can imagine if your tower is 100 meters, you need 1,500 meters. So that's 1.5 kilometers between wind turbines. And that's a lot of space that you are keeping between turbines. And right now, as you might have read, there are also possibilities where there are hybrid farms where there are wind turbines, and below wind turbines, you have PV modules. So not only are you using that space to generate wind, but also solar and probably agriculture, agri PV. There are a lot of possibilities that, I mean, there are lots of things to talk about, but at the same time, the technology is still improving. So you can't like vouch for it. But I feel there are solutions, but hybrid is something definitely to look into the future where you have both wind and solar on the same project area, I would say. And then land use, like I said, a lot of people are vying for land, say for real estate, for other infrastructure. It's not just your energy. So people look at the value that these bring. Like for example, real estate is very tempting. You make a lot of money with real estate, so you might have that second. You might second guess: should I invest in a wind park or should I invest in real estate? So that is also something that's going on here, I would say. And of course, there's the same problem as PV intermittency. Wind doesn't blow sometimes. Sometimes you see wind parks where three turbines are working, one is switched off, or there is some kind of problem with the turbines. There's unavailability because of that. Then you have to switch off the turbines. So all these things, they are make sure they kind of result in intermittency. And this, for example, storage, energy storage is the solution to this, which I feel in the next few years is going to catch a lot of momentum. We are going to see a lot of investments and a lot of research on this topic particularly. Then this is the future scope of renewable energy in Germany. The first thing that I wanted to highlight with the number is that there are 1.5 million private installations of solar in Germany, and that's a huge number. And they make sure that you're self-reliant, and they also contribute to the energy production. And at the same time, you're also helping people in the grid who might require energy at the peak and vice versa. And then looking ahead, Germany seems to want to achieve 80% by 2030. And right now it's 58% overall, like not just the public electricity, but overall it's 58%. And that's in the next 5 years. So going up 22% in the next 5 years is quite the challenge. But I would say it's possible if the policies are a little more friendly, if the approvals are a little more quicker and streamlined. And I feel we are getting there, especially with solar projects. Solar speed is quite quickly. Conversion rate for solar projects are a year, and for wind projects, they are over a year. And that is also because you need to measure your wind speed where you want to set up your wind farm. And to optimize your wind farm, it's ideal to have data for 2 years instead of a year that normally is recommended. And then there is also increased focus on battery tech. There's a lot of institutes and universities here working on the topic of solar technology, and I feel it's very exciting to see how this develops. And a lot of startups are there already that you can send them your solar park details, and then they will plan for you how energy storage might look like, what is the percentage split, how much should be injected into the grid, how much should be stored. So there are a lot of companies working on it. Since they're focused on energy storage, it will be very interesting to see how their knowledge helps this side of renewable energy to advance as well. And then this is specific future scope for wind energy. Offshore wind, like I said, is going to play a major role. And as we had seen in the previous slides, they want to reach 20 gigawatts by end of this decade and 40 by next. And that is going to increase side by side with the increase in wind farms here. And in Germany, there are also a lot of repowering projects for existing wind farms. So existing farms, their turbines are replaced with newer, more efficient and high power generating turbines. So basically, that's going to make sure that the growth for offshore wind and onshore wind will eventually contribute quite a bit to the energy grid in Germany. And also, like I said, a lot of university research, lot of due to this supply chain with other countries and feedback from operational wind farms, you're motivated to invest more time in turbine technology, focus on more efficient turbines to ensure that you produce more electricity, you reduce the area needed to produce the same amount of energy that you used, say, 5 years back. That is always the goal. And if you remember, when I was younger, we had Nokia phones that we needed to press 3 times to get a single letter on our phone, and now it's touchscreen. It's barely takes any time to do it. So I feel the same concept extrapolates to all fields of technology, and renewable energy is no different. And I feel all this, if taken care of, will contribute to meeting the energy transition goals. I do believe it might be very close or it might be less, but it can also be more. And to be more, the awareness needs to be spread. We need to talk about it more. We need to reach out to our peers. We need to spread this information to to tell people that yes, there are disadvantages to renewable energy, but the advantages outweigh the disadvantages over time. And with that, these are a few, for example, articles that you people can read when you have time. They're very interesting developments in the market. And this is specific to Germany. So if you go on the homepage for these websites, you can get like a global view of how renewable energy is developing. Then these are the sources of information. You feel free to read them, screenshot, go on these websites and see what you can learn. Because even as I was making this presentation, I've learned quite a few things, and I'm thankful for this opportunity actually, that it helped me um, learn more things about my field. And I wish and hope that all of you also have learned something from this. And I hope we can create a sustainable and a very clean environment for the future generations to come. And also that renewable energy's outlook becomes more and more positive over time. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention and feel free to ask me questions. I will try my best to answer them. If I don't, I will share my email ID with you. I will reach back to you after I've read about it. And in that way, even I can learn. So thank you in advance if I can answer a question. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I think it was a wonderful presentation, and we learned a lot about Germany's sustainable future, present, and road ahead. And we also request you, few questions have come, so it would be nice if you can answer us. Like one of the question is, uh, as compared to Berlin, what is the future of our the India's sustainable goals and how we are doing in the sustainability area compared to Germany? If you can elaborate on that, sir.
Yeah. So basically, I personally think that India's potential for renewable energy is quite large. I would say it outweighs Germany. The technological advancements, of course, you have new technology here, and you have you always have innovations over here. But in India, like for example, last time when I was home, I think sometime around December, you can see boards or incentives for renewable energy all over India and all over Bombay where I landed. And there was news about this renewable energy summit and what is the goals for the next few years. And it's very exciting. And the biggest solar park in the world if not for China, is in India. And I think in the next few years, we have a lot of projects in the pipeline that I keep reading about. And even the power of a single solar park is more than probably an entire district or a state in Germany. So I think sustainability in India and it tied with renewable energy has a bright future. And I think we are going to become a decentralized superpower when it comes to energy in a few years' time. I strongly believe that. And I hope I'm not wrong, but that's what I believe.
Right, sir. Thank you. Sir, another question has come. This you have spoken a lot about wind turbine and solar power system. Sir, can you please elaborate on the recovery, like how the investment is recovered over time, and do you feel the investment, this IRR and NPV, which we do as cost accountants, how do you feel that how long it takes to recover the investment?
So, so normally wind turbines and PV farms, they are commissioned for around 25 to 30 years. So first things first, one of the major advantages is that you don't need a source of energy to produce energy. And that is, I think, the prime driver of why eventually your cost will get balanced out. Because, for example, now you have coal powered plants and you say you have nuclear plants and you need to rely on procuring uranium, for example, or you need to, over here, for example, Germany's coal production is a lot and they have anthracite and bituminous as well. In India, we have more bituminous coal. So these raw materials are also required to produce energy. But in case of renewable energy, your source is sunlight, which you don't have to pay for. Your source is your wind, biogas, because even like, for example, waste energy is also a part. Like I only talked about PV and wind, but there's also biogas, there's geothermal, there's tidal energy, there's oceanic energy, etc., etc. So there are a lot of other possibilities as well, and all these systems need to be integrated, and it needs to become an ecosystem where you don't necessarily have to invest in raw material, but at the same time, with more efficient turbines, for example, maintenance costs will reduce. You don't have to do maintenance every few years, few months. It'll probably become more like every 6 months. And with AI development, for example, monitoring and all these things, you don't need to, uh, you know, account the costs for that. So I feel like like I said earlier, initially the investment for infrastructure and costs, they're quite high, but over 25 and 30 years, I feel you can start seeing the benefits. And especially this topic when you see in private implementation in your household, within 10 years, you have like a net positive turn in your payback period graph, your NPV. And then you are producing your own energy. You don't have to pay your municipality anymore for electricity, and you are selling them energy, which in turn helps someone else. So there's also a moral element in it. So I feel that's why renewable energy offsets like the cost part of things.
Thank you, sir. It was nice knowing the total gamut of this investment. Sir, you have spoken about balcony, this solar panels. Do you feel can it be means can India do the same, because a lot of incentives has come in
Mhm.
the last budget for the solar power. Can
Yeah.
an household start investing in those things?
Yeah, so basically, solar power, I feel over here, if I explain, I think that would be easier to extrapolate to India. Over here, it's still a cold country, I would say, like temperature wise. And in India, we don't have the problem of sunlight. It's quite abundant, and especially in the western part of India, towards Rajasthan, for example, or towards Gujarat, we have strong sunlight. And there is an interesting fact that you might like. If you cover one small part of Sahara Desert in Africa, you can source energy to the entire globe. So now, if you extrapolate this idea, say for rooftop installations or balcony installations of solar in India, because last time when I was there, I had met a few people who had startups where they were pitching ideas to local residents and local societies for implementing solar, at least to power up street lights or heated water, for example. So I would say, and like right now, the thing with solar is there is a particular thing called tilt angle, which changes with your location in the world. And this tilt angle needs to be optimized for your location. But if your balcony PV, you won't be able to harness the maximum energy, but the volume of panels are more. So the energy that you produce is also more, which in turn I feel you'll see the benefits of it in your electricity bill over time. And I also feel like with rooftop installations, like my personal experience in my house in Pune, we have a rooftop solar system where we have heated water, that's solar. And that has been there for the last 25 years and it has not failed us once. So that reliability factor is also there for solar. So I feel this is a good time to invest. If you can invest, I feel you should definitely invest. And if there are possibilities for hybrid systems where you can sell external energy to the grid, I think that would be the best solution.
Thank you, sir. So another thing is that during this Ukraine and Russia war, people were saying that Germany would not get power or gas from Russia, and it would be, I think, power deficient. So, what do you feel that this gas situation in Germany, uh, which is adequate for catering to the power needs of the country?
Yeah, so that was, I think, the biggest wake up call for Germany. And the thing that made it worse was the last chancellor, Angela Merkel, she wanted to completely decommission nuclear power. So Germany was already in the process of decommissioning nuclear power. And then due to the Russia-Ukraine war, even the gas supply to Germany reduced over time. And now it's like almost zero. And that has propelled Germany. And there was a sharp increase in the price, actually. You could notice it. And companies over here, they were paying their employees to like cater to that energy needs as well. It was during COVID, it was particularly a bit difficult over here with the energy prices. The prices of groceries, the prices of basic necessities, commodities, they went up because the energy required to produce them, they also went up. So, but they stuck to their guns. They said, we don't want nuclear power. We are going to invest in renewable energy. And now they're going in that direction. And they were like, I'm not like, I think things might change a little because there were elections a week ago in Germany. So there's a new party in power. So I don't know how it's going to look like with nuclear power. It may come back. So if that's the case, then it will be a question of slowly replacing conventional sources of energy with renewable.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, another question has come that India, we have this hydel energy across
Hmm.
because we have lot of reservoir of this water, and there is a huge scope of hydel energy, which is a sort of maybe a green energy. Do you think compared to other renewable energies, whether it's cost efficient and whether the sea waves, the tidal energy, because we are also surrounded by seas across the country, so can it be a supplement to the energy needs of the country?
Yeah. So the advantage of hydropower compared to the other sources of energy, for example, wind, which I said the theoretical maximum power you can harness from wind is 59.5%. If if I think 59.3%. And for solar, it's still climbing. It's between 20 and 30, but it's still climbing. But for hydro, the advantage is that the efficiencies are already on the upper side of 70%. So they're highly efficient systems. And we have huge dams in Orissa, for example, in South India. So the scope for hydropower is tremendous in India. And in Germany, they don't have much hydro possibility for hydropower actually. Um, their their offshore capabilities are more than their hydroelectric power capabilities. So as I mentioned earlier, India, we have water on three sides. So that is something that's tremendously going to benefit us. And hydropower, I feel even waste energy is going to be a big topic in India. We have reduced consumption of plastic, which all these countries still use, for example. So we are already started taking steps in that direction. And I feel that the geography of India is suited for um, hydroelectric energy. And also about tidal, for example, I've seen some videos where some parts of Bombay have have experiments with tidal energy, oceanic energy, and that is also a technology that's being developed here in Europe, and eventually it will float around throughout the world, I feel. And when that happens, I feel India is going to benefit quite a bit, because not only is India a bigger country than Germany, but at the same time, the geography is a blessing, I feel, for us.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And sir, circular economy, which is the buzzword now in sustainability, since recycling, reuse is the thing which will help us in the future to protect our energy reserves. How do you think we can generate energy from this waste management or various? India produces huge amount of waste, which hardly we use it through our various reuse technology. So, what do you feel this circular economy can be helped through this reverse engineering of waste management?
Yeah. So basically, one of the sources I didn't talk about was biogas or um, natural gas energy. And this, I feel, is one of the hot topics for India as well, I believe, because we have a lot of waste, like you rightly said. And there are processes like gasification, for example, where you can burn the waste, the heat generated can then be fed into the conventional Rankine cycle plants, and then you have steam generates power. So it's the same process as coal, but instead of coal, you're using waste. So waste is also a big topic. I've not seen it gain momentum here as much as I think the potential is in India. And then I also think that when it comes to circular economy, the recycling of solar modules is also, I feel, is a topic that is requires further research, because you're generating the process that you need to, say, dissolve a solar panel after you use it, or like the silica, for example. All these things can be harmful to the environment. There is still area of research over there. And I believe over time there will come solutions where they will be sustainable, if not make it carbon neutral, I believe. And carbon neutral is, I think, the first step the world needs to reach before carbon elimination. And there is a lot of scope. It's still, all these technologies are still in like the process of development. So I expect to see personally a lot of drastic changes in the coming decade for renewable energy.
Right, sir. Sir, the last question which I will request you to answer, like there is talk of subsidy, like this, especially solar. We have got incentives from government and also from policymakers in Indian context. But what do you think this wind energy? How do you feel that subsidy can subsidy be helpful for this more adaptability of this wind energy?
Yeah, so this is probably, I would say it's a 50-50 question to answer, because investing in wind energy is quite a bit of a commitment, I feel. And that commitment, you also need to keep in mind that companies are investing in this technology, they're building wind farms. And right now, I feel since you already have so many good available technologies in India, the bigger companies might focus on bigger wind farms. The smaller companies might focus on, say, a hybrid system where you have solar and wind, or like I mentioned earlier, I read a few years there's a research where people are placing small wind turbines on highways when cars pass, the wind turbines move, and then they generate enough power for street lamps next to it. So I feel for large scale projects, it's also important to keep in mind that there's a business model that these bigger companies also have in mind. And for smaller scale projects, you know that your return of investment or your NPV or your payback period is shorter. And based on that, I feel subsidies need to be effectively deployed, in my personal opinion. But at the same time, subsidy is also important because it encourages people to invest in renewable energy. And for solar, I feel decentralized solar has more potential than wind, because you can fix panels on your roofs, for example, but you cannot fix a 100-meter high wind turbine in your backyard just to produce energy. So solar and wind, they have different business models altogether. I feel based on these business models, you can probably offer subsidies. That is what I think personally, but we always learn from these new policies over time. So I expect to learn a lot of new things when it comes to these policies over time.
Thank you, sir. I think it was a very elaborate discussion which we had today, and I thank on behalf of Sustainability Standards Board. Uh, Today's webinar was a real eye opener. We learned a lot about renewable energy in Germany and various takeaways out of that. And we thank wholeheartedly Mahesh Krishnan sir for sparing a official working day to us to share his experiences and knowledge, so that our members and all the other who has joined today's event enhances their knowledge in regard to this renewable energy, especially in Germany. We have a lot of activities of SSB, and in the coming weeks, again in the month of March, we are again hosting on 14th March our next webinar. Our next webinar we will be having on the topic of integrating sustainability and technology in supply chain operations. The speaker is Dr. Joji Chandan, who is a professor of School of Business and Management, Christ University. I request all the participants to join that webinar. That webinar would be casted on 14th of March from 4 p.m. And we have published our monthly newsletter, Sukhino Bhavantu. I request all the participants to have a glimpse. We have already circulated, and I think if you check our SSP portal, you can see our latest publication, and we request you to give your feedbacks and also participate in the quiz competition, which we do every month. We have five questions on sustainability, and the first five winners' names will be hosted in our next issue. And I request everybody to just see those thought-provoking questions so that your name will be hosted in the next issue. And with this, we close today's webinar. We thank our SSP Chairman, Board Chairman, CMA Dr. Ashish Thatte, for always encouraging us to organize this fortnightly webinars and other activities of SSB. We thank our all other SSB members, especially Dr. Ranjit Krishnan sir, who has helped us in coordinating and linkage our speakers. And we also thank our president, vice president, and other council members for their wholehearted support. I also thank our IT team, our CPT department, and others who has helped us to make this event a grand success. With this, we close today's webinar. Thank you, and
Thank
we
you.
we are closing
Have a nice
today's
day.
session. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Happy weekend.
You too.
Thank you.